The Newcastle crowd have just humiliated Liverpool and Tottenham at the same time inside St James Park, and what happened afterwards is going to give you goosebumps. But there's so much more from this magical night that you need to discover right now. Alright everyone, how's it going? I'm Rodrigo, and you're on Newcastle Mania, the channel made by a supporter for supporters who are absolutely mad about Newcastle United. Look, you blinked and Newcastle have just sent a brutal message to the whole of England. We've got a spectacular victory, we've got red-hot controversy involving referees with Tottenham still complaining, and there's a moment the cameras didn't show that reveals Newcastle's secret strength this season. And the third story, mate, this one's going to show why this team is building something truly special. But before we dive into all these stories, just a quick word, if you love Newcastle and want to keep up with everything happening at our club, subscribe to the channel right now. It costs nothing, helps massively, and makes all the difference to the growth of our black and white community. Hit that red button down below and turn on the notifications. Right then, let's get into the news. Our News 1, the victory and the epic taunts. Starting with the first bombshell of the day, Newcastle didn't just batter Tottenham 2-0 in the League Cup, but the Magpies faithful took the opportunity to humiliate both Spurs and Liverpool at the same time. It was simply epic. Let me tell you about this magical night at St James Park. Newcastle took to the pitch on Wednesday defending the League Cup title they won last year, and mate, what a performance. Fabian Schär opened the scoring in the first half with a brilliant header, and then Nick Woltemade, our 6'6" giant, got the second goal also with a header after a cross from Joe Willock. It was his 6th goal for the club, and the lads turning into an absolute machine. With this victory, Newcastle are now in the quarter-finals of the League Cup, and will face Fulham in December, at home. Another match at St James Park, another chance to reach the Wembley final. It's the 4th consecutive year Newcastle have reached the quarter-finals of this competition. That's consistency from a big club. But the best part of the night wasn't even the goals. It was what happened near the end of the match and after the final whistle. Tottenham had brought a massive away following to Newcastle, and to give them credit, they made plenty of noise in level 7 of the stadium, contributing to a cracking atmosphere under the St James Park lights. But when Newcastle started controlling the match and it became clear the victory was secured, the Spurs fans started leaving the stadium before the final whistle. And that's when the Gallowgate end unleashed one of the most brutal taunts you'll ever hear. The Newcastle supporters started singing, "It's a long way to London when you're shit." Mate, imagine the humiliation. The away support having to hear that whilst leaving the stadium defeated. It was absolutely savage. But wait, because it gets even better. After the final whistle, the stadium PA system read out loud and clear Liverpool's scoreline, who had just lost by an incredible 3-0 at home to Crystal Palace. And the Newcastle crowd's reaction? An enormous roar of celebration. Everyone in the stadium exploded with joy not just for their own victory, but also for Liverpool's humiliating defeat. And look at the delicious irony of it all. Whilst Newcastle had just won for the 5th time in their last 6 matches, Liverpool, the Premier League champions, have lost 6 of their last 7 games in all competitions. It's an absurd turnaround. And there's more. Remember all that Alexander Isak transfer saga drama in the summer? All that fuss with the player refusing to train and forcing his exit to Liverpool? Well, whilst Isak is over at Liverpool suffering with the team's poor form, his replacement Nick Woltemade scored another goal and is absolutely shining. So at the end of the day, who's having the last laugh? Newcastle. The team are winning, they are building momentum, they are progressing in competitions, whilst Liverpool are in complete crisis. Poetic justice, isn't it? And this atmosphere at St James Park shows something really important. The confidence is coming back. Newcastle aren't scared of anyone anymore. They are taunting rivals, they are dominating matches, they're showing they've come to compete on equal terms with anyone. And News 2, the Tottenham controversy and the referees. Now let's move on to the second story, and this one caused an absolute storm. Tottenham left complaining bitterly about the refereeing, and even former referees got involved in this discussion. Tottenham manager Thomas Frank was absolutely livid with referee Chris Kavanagh because of Newcastle's first goal. And look, you've got to admit the situation was quite controversial. Let me explain what happened. Newcastle were about to take a corner, but Tottenham's fullback Jed Spence was barefoot trying to tie his boot. Yes, you read that right, the bloke literally had his boot undone. The referee saw this and told everyone to wait for the player to tie his boot and put it back on. So far, so normal, right? The problem is what happened next. As soon as Spence finished tying his boot and got it back on, the referee immediately authorized the corner to be taken. But the player was still miles away from his position. He didn't have time to get back and mark. And you know who he was supposed to be marking? Fabian Schär. Exactly the bloke who scored the header. Sandro Tonali swung over the corner, found Schär completely free because Spence was out of position, and goal. Tottenham's players, led by Richarlison, surrounded the referee protesting furiously. Thomas Frank gave an interview after the match and didn't hold back. Look at what he said. Yeah, I think that was clear. I think for me, we conceded 2 goals because of 2 mistakes, in my opinion. Unfortunately, the ref was part of the mistake in the first one. And he continued explaining, his boot is off, we need to tie his shoelace and tie his boot. And you can clearly see on the footage afterwards that the whole boot is off, so we need to do it. And it's minute 23, it's not like we delayed the game for 10 minutes and we have 1 goal up. It's common sense to allow him time to get in. And Frank finished with frustration, so as soon as he had the boot on, the ref let it go. And then, to make it perfect, Jed's man he had to mark was Schär, that scored. So that's why we were very animated. I think that was the biggest one. I think the rest was fine. But not everyone agreed with Frank. Les Ferdinand, former player for both Newcastle and Tottenham, completely disagreed and said Spurs players should have been smarter. Ferdinand told ITV Sport, you can see Porro's got his hand in the air to try and get the referee's attention. Go and stand on the ball and walk back from it slowly. The referee might come over to you and say, get away from the ball. Walk away slowly. You can't do that what Spence did and expect the referee to stop and say, no, he's putting his boot back on. So look at the difference in opinions. Frank thinks the referee got it wrong, Ferdinand thinks Tottenham's players were daft. But the controversy didn't stop there. At the end of the match, there was an almighty scuffle. Joe Linton made a strong challenge on Mohamed Kudus, and the Ghana player reacted with real anger. He shoved Joe Linton in the chest, and then it all kicked off. Xavi Simons and Dan Burn got involved in the bust-up, and even Aaron Ramsdale came racing out of his goal to try and calm everyone down. The referee showed yellow cards to both Joe Linton and Kudus. But former Premier League referee Mark Clattenburg said this was unfair. Clattenburg complained, it does not feel fair that Joe Linton, for his challenge, was given the same punishment as Mohamed Kudus. Joe Linton's challenge was certainly reckless and was a scissor action which tripped his opponent. Nevertheless, it does not feel right that Kudus received the same punishment after being on the end of that tackle. But hang on, Clattenburg's missing the point here. Kudus wasn't punished just for being on the end of the challenge. He was punished because he reacted aggressively by shoving Joe Linton in the chest. That's violent conduct too. So look at this, Tottenham left complaining about everything, former referees are giving different opinions, but at the end of the day, Newcastle won 2-0 and are in the quarter-finals. And that's what matters. A News 3, the moment the cameras didn't show. And now we've arrived at the main story, the one I promised you at the start of the video. And mate, this one reveals Newcastle's secret strength that's making all the difference this season. There was a moment during the match against Tottenham that the TV cameras didn't capture properly, but which shows exactly why Newcastle are building something special. Newcastle were winning 2-0. There wasn't long left in the match when Tottenham's Pape Matar unleashed a shot from the edge of the box that looked a certain goal. The ball was heading for the corner, low, powerful, perfect. But then, out of nowhere, Aaron Ramsdale made a spectacular save. He stretched himself completely, managed to get a strong wrist to the ball and palm it away for a corner. It was one of those saves that makes the entire stadium rise and roar. And look at the reaction it caused. Ramsdale's teammates, the coaching staff, the supporters, everyone exploded celebrating that save as if it were a goal. But the best bit, Thomas Frank's reaction, the Tottenham manager. The cameras caught him throwing his hands up in complete disbelief and then standing still with his hands behind his head, clearly stunned by that absurd save. It was a moment that perfectly summed up the strength Newcastle have got in goal this season. But let me tell you the whole story, because it's even more impressive than you might think. Aaron Ramsdale arrived at Newcastle in the summer on loan from Southampton. Newcastle paid just £4 million for the loan fee. £4 million. That's practically nothing in modern football. But since arriving, Ramsdale's barely played. You know why? Because Nick Pope, the first-choice goalkeeper, is in the form of his life. Pope is simply unbeatable. So Ramsdale stayed on the bench, training, waiting for his chance. And you know what he did? Instead of complaining, instead of sulking, instead of causing problems, he simply worked hard and helped Pope get even better. Eddie Howe talked about this after the match, and his words were beautiful. "We have known Aaron for a long time as a staff, and the big thing for him coming to this club is he was desperate to join us. There's been no hint of negativity or frustration that he hasn't played, and he has focused on his training and produced a performance like he did tonight. A really big moment for him, and I am delighted for him." Look how incredible that is. Howe is saying Ramsdale never complained, never showed frustration, always kept his head right and kept working. That's professionalism at the highest level. And the best bit, Ramsdale himself admitted in the match program that he's pushing Pope to be better. He said, "I've had a few chats at the start of the season from the management saying how well I'm doing. It's not just down to me for pushing, but I think the level of consistency he has shown so far this season is something I can take a huge amount of pride in, knowing I'm pushing him every day, and it's something I have to stand up and applaud." And continued, "I'm chomping at the bit, doing everything I can to get ahead of Nick, and it is really healthy. I'm taking a small amount of pride in how Nick is playing. Mate, do you realize what's happening here? Newcastle have got TWO elite goalkeepers who, instead of fighting each other, are helping each other improve. That's so rare in football. Newcastle paid £12 million for Pope 3 years ago. They paid £4 million for Ramsdale's loan fee. That's £16 million in total for a goalkeeper pairing that's probably the strongest in the entire Premier League. To give you an idea, Manchester City paid way more than that just for Edison. Chelsea paid a fortune for Kepa and then had to sign another one. Manchester United are always having problems in goal. And Newcastle, they've got two sensational blokes, both in brilliant form, both pushing each other to be better, and all this for just £16 million. It's an absolute bargain. And look at the contrast with other clubs. Normally, having two top-level goalkeepers causes problems. One gets frustrated for not playing, starts complaining, wants to leave, causes chaos in the dressing room. But at Newcastle, it's become one of the team's biggest strengths. The two respect each other, admire each other, work together to improve, and when one gets the chance to play, he's absolutely prepared because he's been training at the highest level every single day. That's the difference between a well-managed club and a poorly-managed club. Newcastle are creating a culture where everyone pulls everyone else up, where there's no destructive ego, where the team's success comes before individual success. And that's why that moment the cameras didn't show properly is so important. Thomas Frank, an experienced and clever manager, was in shock at that Ramsdale save. Because he realized in that moment that Newcastle don't just have one world-class goalkeeper. They've got TWO, and both are ready to shine when called upon. That's Newcastle's secret strength this season. It's not just about having good players. It's about having good players with the right mentality, with the right attitude, who put the team above everything. So then, what did you think of these 3 stories about Newcastle's spectacular victory? The crowd humiliating Liverpool and Tottenham at the same time, all the controversy with the refereeing and Spurs complaints, and that incredible moment that showed the strength of Newcastle's goalkeeper pairing. This is the type of content that shows why Newcastle are building something truly special. It's not just about winning matches. It's about creating a winning culture, a strong mentality, a united group that fights together. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave your like down below. It helps the channel massively to grow and reach more Newcastle supporters around the world. If you're not already subscribed, hit that red button now and turn on the notifications so you don't miss any hot off the press news about our club. And tell me in the comments, what did you think of the crowd's taunts? Do you think the referee got Scar's goal wrong? And most importantly, are you impressed with Aaron Ramsdale's attitude and the strength of the goalkeeper pairing? Leave your opinion down below because I read every single comment. Share this video with that mate of yours who's also a Magpie and needs to know everything that's going on. Especially this bit about the behind the scenes with Ramsdale. Everyone needs to know this inspiring story. Cheers for sticking with me until the end. I'm Rodrigo, this has been Newcastle Mania, and I'll see you in the next video with more news about our beloved Newcastle United. Hoey the lads. See you next time.